everybody. Here's the class. So you'll be hearing what we're doing. You might not be seeing it, but you'll be hearing it. So let's talk a little bit about wine. Who here has had some experience like working in wineries or anything like that? I know that you have, and anybody else?
Sold a lot of wine.
Pour a lot of wine. All right, I love it. So what we're going to do today is, first of all, we're going to learn how to taste wine. So, I'm sure everybody here knows how to taste wine. You've done that before. Well, there are 5 steps in tasting wine. So the first thing you're going to do is actually look at it, the see portion. So you see it, there are 5 S's. See, you're going to smell it, swirl it, sip it, and then you're going to savor it. Now the smell and the sip, the smell and the swirl will be done interchangeably because you're going to want to smell it before you ever aerate it, and then you're going to want to aerate it again and smell it because the flavors that come out in it are pretty phenomenal. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do, let's start with our Riesling. Now, who can tell me anything about Riesling? Yeah.
It's usually sweeter.
It is a little bit sweeter. Anybody tell me where it grows?
Germany.
Germany, yes. Lots of German Rieslings. And we see Rieslings growing in Germany, Austria. This particular one grows in Oregon. So, Rieslings generally will grow in a cooler climate. So where this particular one grows is quite cool. In Oregon. Now, Oregon is known for Pinot Noir most of all, but they're also known for some Rieslings. Had some great ones last week with us. All right, so the Riesling grape tends to be a little fruitier, not quite as high in acid, but what you're going to find when you taste this the first time is that you do get some acidity because it takes a little while for your palate to become adjusted to what's in your mouth. So, I want you first to look at this. Just look at the color. You can kind of hold it against your tasting sheet or against something light. And look at it. Is it pale? Is it yellow? Is it pale yellow? Is it green? What are you seeing with this particular wine? What characteristics does it have? Is it clear? Is it cloudy? I want you to look on your tasting sheet and write on that very first page. First of all, what you see is this is from A to Z. It's an A to Z Oregon Riesling. It's from A to Z Wine Works in Oregon, in Newburgh, Oregon. The vintage is 2019. What does that tell me? What is the vintage year? It's the year the grapes were grown. So don't be one of those people who thinks that what it says on the bottle is when it was bottled. Because if that were true, you'd never really know anything about a wine. Because we know that it's the vintage year, the actual year that the grapes were grown, then we can discover what has been happening with all of those grapes in that particular year. And you can kind of track things. So 2019 in Oregon was a great year. The spring was a little bit cooler, but they got great blossoming. The summer was a little warmer, and then the fall had very little rain. You want very little rain when it comes time to harvest because if you get too much rain, you have to either pick too early or your grapes get beaten up on the vine and then they have too much watered down content. If it's super rainy in the summer, the grapes get too big, they get too intense, too much juice, and then you have watered down content as well. You want a grape that's used for wine to struggle. You want very little water so it reaches down as deeply into the taproot as it can, and then it produces an excellent wine. Okay, so let's look at the rest of your sheet. This particular one is $16, and it's 12% ABV. Who can tell me what ABV is? Alcohol by volume. Yeah. So that is the percentage of alcohol within this wine. ABV is alcohol by volume. And it's 12%, which is pretty normal. And this is 100% Riesling grapes. 100% Riesling. Now, a grape that says, a bottle of wine that says Riesling doesn't have to be 100% Riesling. Can actually be 75 to 85% depending on what state you're in. But this particular one is 100%. So we like that. All right, now let's taste this wine. I want you to pick this up, give it a smell, nice sniff, and then I want you to swirl it in your glass. Give it a little swirl. And if you can't swirl in the bottle like this, in the glass like this, you can swirl like this, or you can put it down on the table and just give it a nice little rotation. Works great. And then I want you to smell it. And I'm not saying put your nose on the edge of the glass. I want you to put this part of the glass against your bottom lip, right below. And then I want you to stick your nose right down in it, like this. And breathe it in. Really breathe it in. And what do you smell? What are you smelling? Besides grapes.
It's crisp. It's crisp.
It's crisp, yeah. What causes that crispness?
The airflow.
Yes, the airflow and the acidity. So it's got a lot of acid in it. So you really get that crisp smell. What things are also crisp that you might be smelling in this?
Green apple.
Green apple. Yeah, you get some green apple. Maybe some apricot, pear. Some of those seed fruits. Core fruits. So apple, lots of apple. And that's pretty typical for Riesling. Remember, it grows in Germany. A lot of apple dishes in Germany. What things do you think you might want to eat with something like this?
Dessert.
Dessert? Mm-hmm. Some desserts would be really good, particularly apple desserts. Some seafoods. Sausages. Some things that are German in tradition are really great with this. Pretzels and mustard are awesome with this wine. Cheese. Yeah, some good strong cheese. All right, now we give it another swirl. And I want you to look at the side of the glass and see if you see any streaks of wine running down the side. We see a little bit. But you're going to see much more in other wines. This is called viscosity. And viscous liquids are very thick. This one is pretty thin. It doesn't have a lot of sugar content that would cling to the glass, or alcohol content that would cling to the glass and kind of run down. Those are called legs, streaking legs. This one is going to be crisper than that. So let's give it a taste. And what I want you to do when you taste it is to put it into your mouth, swish it around, and then you're going to spit it into your spit cup. Bummer. Now, does it feel super acidic in your mouth? For
For some of you, it probably will. For some, it will not. Because everybody's palate is a little bit different. Everybody's olfactory senses are different. They're almost like a thumbprint. They're different. Women have tighter, tinier noses that pull those scents in, and you can really pinpoint those scents. Men tend to have a broader sense of scent. So when you smell it, it's more like, I smell a whole barnyard. When a woman smells it, it's more like, I smell a wet horse. So don't be surprised if your smell is a little broader. Like you said, crisp. She said apple. Very, very common. So don't be surprised by that. But it takes 3 sips of wine to bring your palate into the same pH balance as the wine. So the first sip is going to be a little acidic. Don't ever judge a wine on the very first sip, because once you sip it a couple times, it's going to taste completely different. Now we're starting with a little bit sweeter wine. This has a little more residual sugar in it. We're going a little more acidic, because if we started with the super acidic wine and made our way to the sweet, it kills your palate. So you wouldn't tell a difference between the first and second wine, or even the third wine. This one might taste extremely sweet to you if you did this one as the third. Now let's taste it again. Second sip. This time, quickly swallow so that that wine that's left in your mouth coats the back of your tongue. Make sure your cheeks are coated, your tongue is coated, the roof of your mouth, everything is coated. Now, I want you to just hold this wine in the palm of your hand a little bit and swirl it around just a little bit more. What you're doing here is warming it up just a tiny bit. Now this wine should be served at about 45 degrees. This was about 42 degrees, so it's really pretty good for serving this wine. But I want you to see if you taste a difference in wine when it's just a little bit warmer. Now, when something says serve this at room temperature, what temperature does that mean? Anybody want to venture a guess? Is it 72 degrees like here? No. It's cellar room temperature. So the warmest a wine should ever be served is 64 degrees. So cellar room temperature should never go over 64 degrees. All right? Most wines are served cooler. So the cooler white wines are deeper into the cellar, where the red wines are usually closer to wherever the heat source may be. Warmth source, not heat source. All right, let's try this last sip, and this time hold it in your mouth to the count of 10, and then spit it back in your cup. And then take a quick swallow. Is that smoother? Tastes a little different when it's a little bit warmer, when your palate is adjusted, and when you have the chance to really hold it in your mouth and feel that acidity just kind of dissipate a little bit, right? So I want you to look at your sheet, and then I want you to start filling out that sheet with things that you saw. What color was it? What smells did you get? What were your tasting comments? And there on finish, that's where you're going to think about, gee, while I was holding that and I finished that last little bit in my mouth, how long did it stay there? Did it linger on my palate? Was it pretty short and off my palate? Was it bitter at the end? Was it sweet at the end? Was it satisfying? Or was it something I'd want to try again? So think about all those questions that I've given you there. And these are things that I want you to write down, not for me, but for you. Because I'd like for you to keep these sheets so that you know what you've tasted and you can kind of assess what we're doing. Now, let me just tell you what's going to happen with the rest of the class, should we get sent home. I'm prepared. I've requested the dean's office grant us 2 weeks to continue our class if we're sent home. Doubled up so that we would meet not once a week but twice, because I want to get you through the wine component at least. You can always buy a bottle of beer that we can all taste together when we're gathered on Zoom. You can buy a little bottle of cider to taste together when we're on Zoom. The rest of your stuff's actually already packed up for you. We're going to finish packing up the coffee tomorrow in the 312 class, but I've got teas packed up for you. I've got your chocolate, your European Civic chocolate class packed up for you. I have your water class packed up for you. All of those things I have packed up and will be ready. But should we go online? I've petitioned, and I should know within the next few days if that works, just to be able to continue this wine class for a couple of weeks to get all of these wines to you. Some of the wines that I'm going to serve you are about as much as what you pay for the entire class. So I can't have you going out and buying all the wines that we're doing. And I talked to the guy at the ABC board today, and he said, well, just have him buy a couple bottles of Robert Mondavi. And I said, you don't understand what we do. We're not doing that. We're going to really taste some great wines. And I want them to understand the difference, because what I was trying to get them to do was to let me get the little pony bottles of wine and send them home with you. No can do. So, anyway, the next one we're trying is a Vermentino. This is 100% Vermentino. Now, Vermentino grape is a grape that grows really extensively in Corsica and the coast of Tuscany, but it also grows in the Piedmont region of Tuscany. Now, there's a Piedmont region, of Italy. There's a Piedmont region of Italy. There's also a Piedmont region of Virginia. And we grow incredible Vermentino just across the mountain near Charlottesville in a little place called Barboursville. And that's where this one is from. Barboursville Wines. And the winemaker there, Luca Pasquina, is a good friend of mine. And he is just an incredible winemaker from the Piedmont region of Italy. And he does amazing things with Vermentino. So, I hope you will enjoy this. I want you to really look at the color. Then I want you to give it a good smell. See what you smell with this one. And then I want you to give it a swirl and see if the smell is any different the second time around before you give it a sip. Now this Vermentino is $24 a bottle at Barboursville. And it is, it's wonderful, as you can imagine, with fish, seafood. Also really good with some light cream sauces. So a pasta with a very light cream sauce.
Like a vodka sauce?
Yeah, like a vodka sauce, but Even a tomato vodka sauce, I think it would work. Like a penne alla vodka. Next week I will have a new opener. I hate this one. I don't know where it came from, but boy, it's bad. Now, this one is 13% ABV, so 13% by volume. And it is a 2018. Now, I know that you guys were here in 2018. Do you remember how wet it was? Super rainy. Harborsville Vermentino is one of the best wines that came out of 2018. And I can honestly tell you that if you find a red Virginia wine from 2018, stay clear, because it's going to be terrible. The rain that year just drove us almost, out of business at a lot of wineries. So the rain that particular year was super intense, and it was cool in the fall. So the winemakers had to get the wine grapes in before they were ever really ready. What happens with that is that some grapes start to taste a little bit like green pepper if you haven't given them enough time to be on the vine, particularly something like a Cabernet Franc. So it tastes like green pepper, it's terrible, and it just does not produce a good wine. What you're going to find is that most of the wines that are red grape are rosés from 2018 in Virginia. Now, all rosé is produced by red grapes. It's not white grapes that has been added to. A true rosé is made with red grapes only. There are a few companies out there right now trying to do some good blends. There haven't been some real successes yet. But now I want you to give that a swirl. And this time I want you to look again and see if you see that wine run down the side of the glass. We still don't have a real viscous wine, but we see a few of those little legs running. Nothing major, but just a little bit. Now let's give it another good swirl. Really get your nose in there and tell me what you smell with this one. What are you smelling? What fruits or scents or anything do you smell? Anybody getting anything? Anything special? Apple? Apricot? Anything like that? All right, this one was produced in stainless steel, and it was held on the lees, L-E-E-S, for several months. When you hold a wine on the lees, that means that all the dead yeast cells are still sitting there in the stainless steel tank or in the barrel. So when you see that a wine is on the lees or sur lie, S-U-R-L-I-E, sur lie, or on lees, L-E-E-S, that means that it's been held there with those yeast cells. Usually gives it a little bit of a pungency at the end. It gives it a little more structure. So let's see if that's pertinent with this one. Give it a taste. Now, do you get more acid or less acid than with the last one? A little more, yeah. But let me tell you a little bit about this wine. Every single year in Virginia, winemakers from across the state compete in what's called the Governor's Cup. 12 bottles of wine are selected to go in the governor's case. There are 12 bottles in a case. So 12 wines go in the case. This particular wine has been in the governor's case more times than any other wine in the state of Virginia, including Lucas Octagon, which is a pretty incredible blend. It's a Meritage blend, a Bordeaux blend. We'll talk about Meritage blends, Bordeaux blends. They're the same thing, and why they're called Meritage in the United States, why they're called Bordeaux blends in France. We'll talk about that when we get to reds. But this particular wine is one of the most awarded wines in the state of Virginia. It's different. It's uncommon. It has tremendous structure for a light white wine. It's very good. But I want you to think about the finish on your palate. Let's take another sip. And then swallow after you spit it out. Swallow so that you get it on the back of your tongue. Think about the finish. How long does it stay on the palate? Is it pleasing on the palate afterwards? Is it short? Is it long? To me, and this may just be me, the finish on this wine is very bitter. Kind of chokes me a little bit. Now, for a lot of people, that's super pleasing. For me, not so much, but I love the wine. It's the finish that I have issue with. So, for me, I don't sit and sip this wine. I have it with food. Because with food, the finish is totally different. If you've coated your palate with that cream sauce, and then you taste this, the finish is going to be a combination of that cream sauce and the flavor of the wine, and not the bitterness on the back of your tongue that you get. Okay? But it is a lovely wine. Super clear, has a lovely clarity about it. It has just a little bit of viscosity about it. So you know it's been well manipulated. You know that you could probably hold it a year or 2 or 3 and it would be fine. Very few white wines are to be held. That's why what you'll see is we're drinking 2017, 18, and 19. 19, the Riesling, the sweeter, has less structure about it. So it's not going to last a long time in your cellar. You're going to want to drink that this year. The other thing is it had a screw top. Screw top wines generally want to be consumed quickly. They're not made to be laid down for very long. This one has a cork, and it can last in your cellar 2 or 3 years without any problem, and possibly even longer. We're still experimenting with that in Virginia. All right, let's try that last sip. Always afraid I'm going to spit on the microphone. All right. So that is Vermentino. Now, most places in America can't grow Vermentino. The Piedmont region of Virginia is prime area for it. So I'm really hoping that more people start to serve this amazing wine because I really think it's going to be an up-and-comer. All right, the last one that we're going to try today is a Sauvignon Blanc. Now, who here has had Sauvignon Blanc? All right. What is the fruit that you associate with Sauvignon Blanc, with the flavor? Anybody?
Sap
What's that?
grape. Sap grape.
Sap grape, okay. Is there any residual flavor that you get? Fruit, any kind of fruit, or?
It's a little citrusy to me.
Sorry, refrigerator's on. What
I
did you?
said it's a little citrusy to me.
Very citrusy, yeah. So most people associate this with grapefruit, lemon peel. It does tend to have a citrus kind of overtone to it. The Sauvignon Blanc grape is the grape that is closest on the vine to what it's going to taste like in the bottle. You can't go out to the vineyard and taste a Chardonnay grape and expect it to taste like Chardonnay wine. It just doesn't. There's a lot that has to happen between the time that it is harvested and is put in the bottle. But Sauvignon Blanc grapes, you can go out when they're ready to be picked, you taste them and they taste just like wine. Now, everybody's pretty familiar with Cabernet Sauvignon, right? Cabernet Sauvignon is one of the most sold grapes in the United States. Cabernet Sauvignon has two parent grapes. It's a blend, a hybrid grape. The mother grape is the Sauvignon Blanc, and the father grape is the Cabernet Franc. It's odd that it comes out so crispy white. You know, a lot of people would think that it would be a rosé looking grape. It's not. It's not. It's a very true white wine. But Sauvignon Blanc going into the Cabernet Sauvignon, it just produces a really nice mellow wine. So you get a lot of that history of acidity with the history of tannin. Strong tannins in the Cabernet Franc, strong acidity in the Sauvignon Blanc. So the Sauvignon Blanc is the mother grape, Cabernet Franc is the father grape. All right? Now, I want you to swirl this one around and look at the viscosity of this one. Is it stronger? Are you getting more of that run? This one, I believe, is 13% ABV, or is it 12? It's 13% alcohol by volume. And it's a 2017. A little bit older. This one is from the Horse Heaven Hills AVA in Washington State. Can anybody tell me what AVA stands for? It signifies American Viticultural Area, AVA. That's very important. For the Vermentino, you saw in little markings, Monticello AVA. That's just right across the mountain from us near Charlottesville. And the Monticello AVA is a premier AVA in Virginia. It's a premier area to grow grapes. Now, for example, in Virginia, we only have a small number of AVAs, like 7 AVAs. In Napa County alone, in California, there are 17 AVAs. An AVA is a designation that has to do with the fact that the soil content is different than any other region. So because it's a volcanic area, it's coastal, all of those things, Napa Valley will have a lot of AVAs, a lot of different soil contents, a lot of different climates, microclimates. In Virginia, we have 7. Yeah? Viticultural, American Viticultural Area. So wine, the study of wine is viticulture. Yeah. And the study of the vine is viniculture. So this one is Sauvignon Blanc from Washington State, Horse Heaven Hills, AVA. This one, when you smell it, I want you to tell me what you smell. Anybody get that citrus? Yeah, grapefruit, lemon peel. Sometimes you get a little bit of kind of like orange blossom, but you get more of that with that Riesling. that fruitier wine, you get more blossom smell. When you're trying to pair this wine, it pairs beautifully with fish, with seafood, with chicken dishes. Things are very light. So all of these things that we've tried today are wines that will go with a much lighter food. But something like this also goes really well with like a charcuterie platter. So you've got some little sausages and some cheese, because the acidity in this cuts through that fat. So let's give it a taste. A little more acid or a little less than the last one? A little more, yeah. Just a little more
I think a
acidic.
little more carbonate too, though.
A little more what?
It seems like there's more carbonation or something.
More carbonation. And carbonation, there's some natural carbonation in wine because as that yeast is eating the sugar, it creates that carbonated effect in the tank. And that's why you have the fans on the top of the tank to suck out that carbonation and that effect on it. Some people like to leave a little effervescence as behind. That's really common in Albarino grapes, particularly. You get that effervescence when you taste that. All right, let's give it another taste. Good. Who here likes a more buttery wine? Okay. So, did we talk at all about, I've done 2 classes, did we talk about the buttery flavor of wine? Okay, let's talk a little bit about that. And you'll see some of that next week when we talk about Chardonnays. The butter, yeah. The buttery flavor is caused by something called malolactic fermentation. M-A-L-O-L-A-C-T-I-C, malolactic fermentation. It's when that malic acid from that green apple meets with a lactic acid, and it creates this buttery flavor that happens. Now, there are a couple of ways to get that, but the first one, and the one that always has to be present, is that you put in the yeast structure that allows for malolactic fermentation to happen. Because you do want to add a yeast to wine when you're making it. There's some natural yeast there, but you want to make sure you put in the strain of yeast that's going to give you the result that you want. The other thing that adds to malolactic fermentation is when a wine is put into a barrel. Now, barrels are usually American oak, French oak, or Hungarian oak. There's a natural content in those barrels called vanillin, like vanilla. And you never put wine into a barrel unless it's toasted. You don't just put it into a natural barrel. You actually put that barrel over an open fire and you toast it to whatever level of toasting you want. It's usually light toast, medium high toast, heavy toast, or heavy plus toast. So if you want a heavy toast on your wine, you're going to ask for a heavy toast barrel. Now, thinking about that, I want you to think about having a s'more. Just a marshmallow, chocolate, graham cracker. But think about that marshmallow and what happens to it when you lightly toast it, when you toast it a little more, and when you let it burn. They taste completely different, right? The same thing happens with those barrels. So if you put just the right toast on that barrel, your wine is going to taste like popcorn, marshmallow, butter. It's just amazing. You get these amazing flavors. And it's caused by nothing more than the combination of the grape created into the must, the juice, which is just the runoff of the juice from the natural grape, because wine doesn't have anything in it but yeast and the grape. It's just what you put it in. So if you put it in stainless steel, it's going to take on just the tendencies of that grape. If you put it in a barrel, depending on your toast level, it's going to take on the flavor of that barrel. And you'll find two different styles of barrels that you'll hear about. Neutral oak and new oak. New oak is brand new. It's just been toasted. It's just ready for the winemaker to use for the very first time. One of those barrels costs up to $1,500 and more for one barrel. One barrel. The neutral oak has been used. So that toasting, that flavor is coming out of it. But it's still good for barreling. If you want that neutral oak, if you want that oakiness, but you don't want to be slapped in the face with the flavor of oak. All right, so let's take that last sip. All right, so have you learned anything today? Anything interesting? So next week we'll explore some Chardonnays, maybe some other white wines, I'm not sure. I still have to place my order on Thursday with Brock. And it should be loads of fun. I really love to taste Chardonnays because they really run that gamut with that oakiness. So I'm excited to try some different ones with you. And I want to look in my cellar, see if I have any older ones that I could pull out. I'm not sure that I still have any, but if I do, I'll pull out a bottle or two so that I can let you try something that's older, oakier, buttery. So what I need you to do, I want you to take your envelope, and right here, I just need you to write your name right there, and then your shield goes in it. And I will hold those for you until next week. On your small white envelope, make sure that you put your name, and whether you're paying cash or check, make sure that the check is made out to JMU Center for Professional Development. And then you can put your mask back on. But it was good to breathe for a while, right? And then as you get ready to go, make sure that you put your driver's license right here on the front. And then your envelope with your payment, and then you can put your big envelope right here with your shield. By the end of the week, I will post something for you about wine production or wine growing. This is a work in progress because, I just wasn't sure what was going to happen with COVID. So I didn't load up the whole website with everything that's going to happen during the semester. We'll have a quiz after wines, and then we'll have some sort of final exam. Normally what I'm having to do is a tasting exam at my house. But if we're gone, we won't be doing that. That's why I had to hold out the $25.
I live up here.
So maybe I'll take your exam for everyone. But you guys, I hope to make this just a fun class for you, educational but fun. And if there's anything else that you want to know about wines or beer or ciders or any of the drinks that we go through, just ask the question, and if I don't know it, I will find it out for you, because this is like a passion, all right? So, you are free to go, just drop off your things right up here. Okay?
So, I have my ID, do you want to make a copy now?
Yes, if you go over, actually, if you go over to the office, I believe that there should still be somebody there. She might be gone. All right, so if she's not there at the front
You want me
desk,
to do it, next Tuesday?
yes. If she's not there, come a little early next Tuesday and go over and see Ruthie. Yeah. Thanks a lot.
Is Brock got glasses? Does Brock have glasses? Kind of register?
Yes,
I
short.
like, yeah, we
I
talked about that other
love
time.
him. I love him. He is so great.
Yeah, he was my, go-to guy for one, but,
He is amazing. He's amazing. I love Brock.
he is.
And he's a JMU grad,
Yeah,
so, you know.
he knows what
I
he's
was like
talking
growing
about.
up and order his way.
Thank you so much, Chelsea.
Yes, yes. Just bring it next week and come a little early and go over and see Ruthie and let her copy it for you.
Okay, I can do it at my apartment.
Oh, that'd be great, Ken. Just bring your copy.
Bye, Chelsea, thanks.
Bye, see
Thanks,
you
Dad.
later. Bye, guys.
You want anything?
Okay, yeah, just bring glasses up here. Just sit them right up here. That's perfect. I've got to get the dishwasher going, so if you can just stick them up here, that'd be great.